Hello, Otafest listeners, and welcome back to the podcast. It's Jay. I've got an Angelo and a Nancy with me.
Hello.
I am one of many Nancys.
One of many. My God, she is a multitude.
I've met at least 3 other Angelos over the course of my life.
Wow.
I don't know if I've met more than me.
I've known several J's, but they don't spell it the way you do.
Then they must be bad at spelling.
It's true.
I think you're the only Angelo I know, but I know there's at least 2 other Nancys that I grew up with.
There's one other Angelo I know, and it's the dog from Final Fantasy.
It wasn't until grade 11.
Dear sweet Angelo.
It wasn't until grade 11 that I met the second Angelo I'd ever known. And we both had very similar last names.
Oh!
And so there was one point where we had a substitute teacher, and she's taking roll call, and she goes, is Angelo here? And we both just in unison ask which one. And
Nice.
then she says, Angelo V. And both of us say, which one?
Which one?
And she's like, what the Yes.
Nice. All right. Before we get too far, we've got some Otafest news. Angelo, would you like to start us off?
Coming to Otafest 2023, Christicles GG, a talented artist, designer, and cosplayer. She's known for her surreal, futuristic style that blends traditional and digital media. As a passionate advocate for Indigenous representation in pop culture and mainstream media, she uses her voice to raise awareness about racism, tokenism, and prejudices. Pre-registration is now open for our skit and craftsmanship contests. Visit otafest.com/cosplay to pre-register.
And Idol Festival registration is open now. otafest.com/idol-festival for more details. And to mitigate the crowding and queuing issues from last year, we've made a few changes, including extending exhibitor hall hours, adding ticket caps, and no in-person sales on Otafest Saturday, and other measures. So please read the entire update at otafest.com/ticket-update.
The news.
Wonderful. So much news.
This concludes the announcement portion. Please proceed to the conversation portion.
Oh my god, is Nancy a robot? Has Nancy been replaced by ChatGPT?
Oh, shit.
I knew we said we were going to do that, but I didn't think it was going to happen so soon.
Nancy GPT.
You heard
I didn't think it was going to be so obvious.
Same. I thought the AI was better than
I
that.
thought it was
Goddamn.
supposed to be more I thought we were supposed to be like, oh,
You know
there's
what?
no difference.
Get this shitty AI out of here. Let's get the real Nancy back on. Come on.
What?
Yeah, that's what we need. Hello.
Hello.
Rebooting
I'm back.
Nancy.
You go over there now.
I
Yes.
suppose discarding the AI for the old technology of meat speakers is kind of a good thing. I appreciate it. But the other week we had that horrible dump of snow, and I was driving to work, coming up on a stop sign, and as one does, I pressed the brake pedal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my car is a little bit older. It's a 2007, and it doesn't have ABS. So when it's snowy and slippery like that, I feel the brakes lock up, and I do as one needs to do. You pump the brake pedal. You are the manual.
Yep. As they taught us in driving school.
The manual ABS.
Yep. They taught us that in driving school.
And that just got me thinking. Considering every vehicle that I want to buy to replace my car is even older than the car that I have now, it got me thinking, what other technology would I want or could I change in my life and use objectively older and worse versions of?
Okay. You just had me going down a little bit of a mental thread there with like manual transmission. Manual is something I super enjoy driving when my knees aren't killing me, but I like it. And it is an objectively older technology compared to automatic transmissions. You can get a newer manual, for the short time that we're still going to be making them until all vehicles transition to something else. But I still like it.
You're not alone in that. Just about every kind of car enthusiast out there is all about the manual transmissions. Even Dio's 2013 car has a manual in it. But that's actually becoming exceedingly rare. Like in North America,
Yes.
automatic has been like the standard for 30 or 40 years.
I mean, I like the idea of driving a manual vehicle. I wouldn't mind paddle shifters, which some vehicles have. I know that some very like die-hard standard transmission lovers do not care for paddle shifting, even though the idea still exists. The concept is still the same, but the feel is just slightly different. Well, slightly is probably an understatement, but I don't know. I think there's room for compromise.
There is not room for compromise because electric vehicles have no transmissions.
Yeah. They kind of feel like you're winding up a giant rubber band very, very quickly. It's weird.
Is it? I actually haven't been able to drive one yet.
Well, I mean, I don't know anything about an electric vehicles. I'm just saying there are regular combustion engine vehicles that are being produced now that have paddle shifters.
Those are for the rich
I
people.
think Subaru has some.
Paddle shifters are for rich
Those
people.
are for rich people. Okay, well, to your question originally, I would never want an older phone than my last phone. And my last phone I got in like 2017. I don't want a phone older than that.
That's where I'm with you. I am right on with you with that. I would not replace my cell phone with a worse cell phone. And I know this from experience. I've kept old phones that I've really loved. I've tried going back to them. I hate them.
Wait. If I could revive my original Nokia phone, maybe I would use it on occasion.
Just a flip phone or?
It was the bar phone, like the original iconic bar phone.
Sure.
The one that...
It's like the 6310 or whatever it is.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure you need a PAL for those. I'm pretty sure they're registered as
Oh
weapons.
they're more or less indestructible. The thing that broke on it for me after I think 5 years of having it was the vibration motor was actually making very unsettling noises. So I just didn't want to chance it like blowing up or something.
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't actually blow up.
No, but it might have melted down the battery. I don't know.
I don't know if like a cell phone. First of all, I don't play mobile games. I don't use things that are particularly like, I think processor heavy.
Intense.
Like I just do a lot of reading on my phone, and then there's music. That's pretty much it. I mean, and then there's texting and calling, but those are also pretty low intensity. I feel like I could go back to an older phone. Like aside from things like software and app updates or security updates, like foregoing that level of complexity in this hypothetical, I think I could go back to an older phone. I don't know how.
That's the issue with phones. It's the software compatibility, right?
Yeah, but like again, if we were to be so complex, I don't think that this hypothetical works at all.
Well, okay,
Fair.
I should be more clear. I wouldn't want a smartphone older than the one from 2017, but if you were to give me a dumb phone from older than that, it might be okay.
There was one dumb phone that I actually wanted. It was called John's phone, if I remember right.
John's phone?
John's phone.
Jesus.
It was just a little white brick with numbers on the front. It had a one-line LCD display at the top to show you just the number that's calling.
Ah.
It didn't even have contacts. It had a built-in pad of paper on the back.
What?
Weird.
What?
That is, if I had to go to a dumb phone, that would be the dumb phone for me.
I remember wanting the dumb phone that was heavily featured in like the first Matrix movie.
The Motorola Razr, or whatever it was called.
I don't think that was the Razr. That was the one that had like the slide open.
Oh.
Speaking, like the sort of the Ericssons.
I don't know what it was. I don't
But
know.
speaking of
Fall.
Motorola, so Lenovo now owns Motorola, and I think last year they released a new Razr. I don't know. I feel like it probably didn't do that well, or else we would have heard about it more. But the Razr does live on. The form factor, I think it has a foldable screen as well, which
They are a razor and nothing but name.
don't know if that's really appealing. I
Motorola has multiple times tried to revive the Razor branding, and it's failed every single time.
I think the first Razor was just, it looked so cool because they sported this laser cut metal keypad and it looked really cool, but it didn't use very well and it didn't age well. Like the flip hinge on it would break after a couple of months, and like that was but it had such an iconic look to it. And this was back in the time when like having a funky looking device was more important than the actual functionality.
Talking
of
about the
it.
hinge, you unlocked a core memory from back in high school
Oh dear.
where there was this one
Oh,
kid
dear.
who just joined our friend group, and this is the first time I met him. There was a spider on the floor that we were sitting on. He sees it, screams,
Oh no.
takes out his phone and flips it up, and starts hitting the spider with it against the hinge. Like, he broke his phone.
Why?
must be
trying
nice to be rich.
That's what I said.
That is not the first thing I would ever think of to use against a spider.
Yeah.
I mean, I also like to capture spiders alive.
Yeah,
But
I
if
tend to
I have
do.
to.
I tend to
Most
do
of the
that
time I just leave
thing
them
where I
alone.
get like a big magazine and I try to get them on the magazine and then I shoo them out the door. Like I don't try to crush the poor thing with a phone.
With a phone in the
With a
opposite way of the
phone.
hinge.
I will say one thing that I wouldn't go back to a dumb phone for
Oh,
is a keypad. Especially with texting. I
T9?
don't want to go back to the T9 texting.
Damn.
I mean,
I used to
I
be
know
so
that there's a
fast at
part of my
T9.
brain. Hold on. I know that there's a part of my brain that's like a core memory type of thing where, 1 kilobyte or 5 bytes or whatever it might be of my brain is reserved for T9 usage. It still has that memory. And I know that I was pretty good at it, as we all were, because we got used to it
As
and
we
got
all were.
quickly. But pressing 4 times just to get to S, I am
yeah,
done
that
with
always annoyed me. Words with S's in them. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's the nice
done
thing about
with that.
John's phone. It avoids that problem, despite having a T9 keyboard, by simply not supporting texting.
I see.
But cell phones aside, I saw a TikTok the other day
Oh dear.
of
Wow.
someone saying, what if
Trying to be hip, hey?
there was like a phone just in your house and anyone could use it? Like not just for one person, but for the whole house to use. Wouldn't that be so convenient? This was someone.
But then if someone was using it, then I wouldn't be able to be online
Yeah,
at the
I
same
wouldn't be
time.
able to use my
this was
dial-up
someone
modem.
who had literally never grown up with landline phones.
Oh my gosh. Mine must have been blown when the internet like piled on them.
Yeah, really. There's a reason we don't use that anymore. I would never get a landline phone.
I would also never go back to VHS.
Yeah, rewinding is for suckers.
As a child, I was not gentle with my VHS tapes. Well, not even that, but like the more you play a VHS tape, the more it breaks down.
Degrades. Well, that's all physical media.
magnetic storage in general is for
Magnetic
suckers.
storage, yeah.
Yeah.
But like optic, maybe?
Society has evolved beyond the need for hard drives.
I would not use a landline phone in my own house unless it became like a staple service that every like home had, that was almost like a smart smart home type of thing, where maybe like it's wired throughout your house, so as you walk through your house into different rooms there's still like interwired like microphones and speakers, but then that does just kind of gets creepy too. So
Yeah, a
maybe
little
not.
bit. Ooh. Mm-mm.
It's like two sides of the same thing, where like I wouldn't mind having a landline, but I also don't want to pay for it. I don't think it's like that expensive to pay for it, but I don't need the landline part.
The only thing that landlines are good for is that proper old landlines, they would still work when the power went out.
Yeah, I used to love that. I also really, really liked the fact that on a physical landline, if you were both talking, you could still hear each other.
Because they used separate lines for transmission and receiving.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, it was
interesting.
great.
I don't know
Another
if I
really
remember
neat
that much.
gadget
No, it was
that I
great.
once saw was a tabletop lamp that plugged into your phone line specifically so that it could use the 7 volts or whatever it gets from there to be a emergency lamp during blackouts.
Oh, wow. That's thinking.
I mean, that's pretty innovative.
That's thinking. I like that.
Again, we are losing audience right now.
They do not
People
understand.
are falling asleep listening to
They're
us.
like, no, it's not falling asleep. They're like, what are they even
A
talking
phone jack?
about? This is
In the wall?
Like, here's the thing. I saw something about this just randomly on the internet, just like a comment probably on Reddit or something like that, where someone had to explain to their child, their probably like 10-year-old child, that they are like, and we fall in this category, that we're all older than Google, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh,
Like
God.
that idea where something is like extremely ubiquitous, right?
Honey, there used to
And-
be a time when Google wasn't available.
Yeah, that you had to go to the library.
research meant walking down to the neighborhood library.
I also apologize. We're losing people left and right. It's not just young people. We're also like dusting older people. Like anyone who's older and listening, they're just like, my God, and then they just turn into dust.
Honestly, even on that note, a study came out the other day. That Gen Z, the children, as the children call them, they are worse at computers than Gen X or millennials. Specifically,
I can
there
understand
were two
that.
things in particular.
Why?
One was the ubiquity of search engines like Google, but also the fact that the appliances that they use to interact with the internet abstract so far away from what computers do that when you give them a computer, they are just lost. They don't know what file systems are.
Oh.
Unless they have like
They don't know what it
Yeah.
means to have a different program.
they don't necessarily. I can understand that even just from a common sense standpoint, because they didn't have to grow up with the development like
Where
we did.
Facebook might change
where,
3 times in 1 year.
Like I would say that. So out of all three of us, I can easily say I'm the least tech savvy out of the three of us here.
And I would
right now.
say you're still very tech savvy.
Which is weird in the sense that I don't have a pointed or educational interest or academic interest in technology, but I grew up with it. I grew up around it, and I could see how it developed. I know sort of its user-based roots, so that I know, again, things like file systems. I know some basic coding. I know some like very, very base level programming. And I think that sort of helps me understand the tools that I'm using. It's sort of the same way that I think on a general surface level, most people don't understand how their cars
It is
work.
exactly like
They know that they have to go get it, like maintenance. They know how they need to go get their, oil change or some kind of tune-up, but they don't really know what a tune-up means. You know what I mean?
And-
They just know that they have to do the maintenance.
And they don't want to, is kind of.
Well, no one really wants to.
Yeah, but just they don't want to learn about how things work underneath the hood.
Cars are an exceptionally good analogy for this because they've gone through a similar curve as far as the utility of the technology goes, right? So when you take boomers, they were there when computers were being invented. Gen X and millennials were there by the time the technology had matured,
For home use, everyday
but it
implementation.
still had a long way to go to become
Yeah.
where it is now. So they were the ones who didn't have the internet, had to figure things out on their own just by clicking and figuring things out. But they got to learn
Yeah.
the very low level of things all the way up to the very high level of things. And that's kind of where we are today with Gen Z having only been exposed. Yes, of course, they would have had computers at the home, but a lot of them would have had like smartphones, iPod touches, tablets that basically turn computers into appliances. You don't really get to see what's happening underneath. You just get to use it.
I kind of wonder what that generation has that's like that. So for example, if you want to talk about boomers and like, I don't know.
Well, literally cars
maybe
for
not
boomers.
maybe the generation
because
before
for them,
then it might be like
cars were
it might be
very
vehicles, yeah.
analog. You had to understand how the
Yeah.
carburetor worked. You had to understand how the airflow sucked in atomized fuel and all of that nature, because if it was broken, that's how you had to fix it. You had to understand this because there was no internet to look it up. And so there were the boomers who, their car culture was that you could fix every single part of it, and if you couldn't, you could probably get the parts at the store or take them down to a machine shop and get a new one made for you. Cars today, it cannot be done.
Meanwhile, now I think most cars are so... Yeah, I think parts are so integrated now that would be really difficult to try and accomplish today with a more modern, like a newer car.
Especially if you
Basically,
go back again to
if
like
you are
electrics.
modding a car these days, your first job is to rip out the computer and put in one that you can actually change.
Well, we were saying like, you were asking what cell phone you would go back to. Like I've always wanted to have a project car, but that project car would be like a 96 Subaru kind of thing. So like, I would never want to work on a new car.
The 90s was
learn
the
anything to
decade
do with
where
a new
cars were becoming what new cars are today.
Well, you
yeah.
could say that the 90s, the late 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s are absolutely the time where the world started becoming digital from analog, and we're the generation that understands that the most and watched it and experienced it. There's obviously the generation ahead of us now. Behind? I don't know what the technical term would be, but the younger ones where they just live and exist in a digital age, which is interesting because again, so a lot of that is like all hidden behind a smooth interface. Analog to me represents practical knowledge is what it really comes down to, I guess. And I just wonder where that generation will get practical knowledge in terms without like explicitly studying it or having a distinct interest in it.
I feel like one of the weird core memories that you and Angelo have just prodded at is my experience with like the Windows control panel. Back in Windows 95, the control panel was very easy to figure out. You went to the control panel, everything that you could ever need was there. You just had to go through it and figure out which one you needed. And through
even by the time Windows XP rolled around, it was a pain. in the
yeah,
ass.
so what my point is that like with subsequent versions of Windows, they've abstracted further and further away from making the control panel easy to use. Like now things are kind of
Windows
hidden through
11
multiple layers of like a settings app and then this and then maybe
exactly.
if you know exactly which dialogue to trigger, you'll get back to the original
Yep.
networking settings dialogue that you need. And like, I'm all for a better refined UI for something, but when really what they're doing is just abstracting you away from the tools, that doesn't sit right, not totally right with me.
The worst part about the control panel specifically is that for 3 major versions of Windows now, Windows 8, Windows 10, and Windows 11, we've still had the control panel, but we have a second settings menu. And they do, some of the settings that they do in them are the same settings, but most of them,
Some of them
are completely different. So you have to just know that the one setting that you want to change is in the settings menu, whereas this other setting is through the control panel. Or even worse, they've removed it from the control panel, but it's not in the settings menu, but instead, it's this little tiny dialogue words right off to the side in the settings menu. It's like, would you like to see more network settings? Would you like to see adapter settings?
Yeah, that's what. Oh God.
I will say, like,
anyway,
it is annoying. I've had some like issues just trying to dig up older settings, older control panel type applications now in Windows, but you know, at the end of the day, we're just being old about it.
Yeah, I know, and it's like the current, generation that's going through formative years, they're going to experience something else just taking off and maturing. I don't know what that is. Like, is it going to be AI? Is it going to be machine learning? Like, I don't know what that
Back
thing for
in
them
my
is going to
day,
be. But for us, it
I
was a
had to
lot
hook
of
up my
things.
neurons manually to the great hive mind.
Yeah, but okay, think about how many things our generation has had to watch mature, right? Cars, cell phones, like personal
Cameras
devices
as a
in
result-
general,
everything
cameras,
that goes into a cell phone.
and like it's just there's so many things that we watched mature and like become all of these different technologies that we have now from an mostly analog state or a very dumb digital state. But like, what will that thing be for the current generation that takes off and becomes like the next big thing?
I don't think
know.
it's going to be this, but I would be so proud if it was homemade Beyblades.
Oh,
Made out of like saw blades and stuff.
no way.
It's not going to be that.
That
already
can't,
existed.
No.
It's called Wild Wild West.
Oh,
Will Smith was in it?
Oh my god, that's right.
oh my god, I forgot
remember
all
They had
about
man
that.
hacks.
Yeah,
They had the Half-Life
Yeah,
2 man
yeah.
hacks. Going through a cornfield.
Yeah. They had like the guys with like the magnetic collars, and then they had the buzzsaws that would fly.
And then the
at
giant
them.
robot spider mech. Wild Wild
Yeah.
West was such a
They
damn
let
good
it rip,
movie.
and it's been
Didn't they come
lot
out
of
with a
people
second
hate
one?
A lot of people. I don't know if
bombed.
there's a second one,
Critically,
but a lot of people
financially bombed.
hated
People
like.
hated it.
Really?
But
It was basically steampunk Men in Black.
Fun.
Yeah,
It's a,
and I love
it's a
that.
stupid fun movie. Like
And-
people.
Freaking Will
need to
Smith had a
get off
banger
of-
song for it.
Yeah, people need to get off of the everything needs to win an Oscar train. Everything has to be critically acclaimed. You just have to, as someone who loves C-level movies and B-list actors, I love support actors and like the ones that just don't get like the main roles. Like my some of my favorite Western actors in general are like oh no, I can't remember his name right now. He does the how
Steve
you doing,
Buscemi.
fellow kids meme. Steve Buscemi, I love him, and he's like he has so many side roles.
He's one of the best.
and he is a good actor, but you don't see him. Like he does get lead roles, but they're in secondary projects. But those secondary projects are
Yeah,
still
a movie
really
doesn't
good
have
movies.
to be award-winning to be great.
No,
To be
not
good.
at all.
Just no. Everyone's got their
Sorry.
own taste in movies, man. Speaking of though, like next generation of things, Kerbal Space Program, huh?
Kerbal Space Program. I love Kerbal Space.
Time to
Program.
go to the
the
moon.
moon.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
To the
I saw
moon.
someone streaming KSP2, and it looked really fun. Looked pretty neat. Was Kerbal Space Program 1 3D or was it 2D?
3D.
It was 3D.
It was 3D?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know what I was thinking about then, that was like a 2D version of it. Because
Oh.
I feel like I've seen that once before, and I
can't-
keep remembering that and wanting to play that.
I'm sure there is something similar. I will say, like Kerbal Space Program 1 is a fantastically fun game. It's actually right now, it's probably a better, more developed game than Kerbal Space Program 2. KSP2 is a bit of a
Well,
buggy
it's in
mess.
early access.
It's right now it's an early access. It's pretty much as bare bones as you can get. There's no campaign mode yet. There's it's all sandbox. It's pretty janky in all the ways that Kerbal Space Program 1 was back in the day.
But that's what made it
except-
endearing and wonderful.
What I've heard is that the dev team kind of worked on a lot of the end product and have developed and finished a lot of that. So like things like modification, things like bases, things like again the campaign mode stuff, but they needed to like push out this beta first to get like some investment, shall we say, some capital to continue developing the second iteration of this game. So much so that, again, I would say that the first game, especially when you consider all like the Steam Workshop mods and overall attention to development from either the community or the official devs, that it's probably the game that's worth playing more right now. But I'm still having a lot of fun because I picked up 2 just because I was like, I loved 1. I love the iterative
Madness.
style of game. Yeah.
The iterative
it's not
madness.
the same thing as like there's lots of games are iterative technically. Like a roguelike is technically
Iterative, yeah. That's true.
yeah, iterative.
That's true.
Actually, this is iterative in its own way because
This
when
is
your
iterative
ship
engineering
fails-
at its best.
Yeah, but it feeds the dopamine cycle in my brain so good because I've stayed up until like 6 a.m. playing this game.
The feedback loop of that is probably so similar to like bridge building games. Except in a completely
Yes and
different
no.
manner, you know? Like you build
Yeah.
the thing, you press the button and you want to see it work. Except in
Yes.
1, it's does the bridge stay up? And 2, are you good enough at the orbital mechanics to reach the moon?
I'm pretty good at the orbital mechanics. I just get greedy about building my ship because I want to build like a space station, an orbiting space station first so that I can get like new projects going up there. But that means that I have to build like the spine of I have to launch a spine into space first to build my orbital space station, which means that I shouldn't build like a 50-foot tower that's not balanced well enough. But I'm like, just get this up to space so I can get more parts onto this. And it's not good. Like I know, I'm not dumb. I'm choosing to be dumb because I just want to get like the big chunk of space station up so I can start sending more smaller spaceships that can dock onto it and start really
Sometimes
building it
it's
out.
not about trying to be
It's really
smart.
fun. I'm having a
Sometimes
really good time.
it's about seeing what kind of bullshit you can get away with. I was watching.
I'm telling
Jay's
you.
rudimentary space elevator version 3.
Oh God! If I could do a
146.
space elevator, it would just
Oh my
like
God.
whip through space. It would just be, it'd be attached to Earth, obviously, and just like, it would just be like, oh, it would be bad. It would be bad for everybody.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, I have stayed up to 6 a.m. 3 times playing so far.
3 times. One
It's
for
feeding
each
the
few
dopamine
hundred
engine.
elevators.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Is it something that you would have pre-ordered for a collector's edition of?
I mean, Jay already pre-ordered it. It's in early access.
Which means someone did fall for the collector's edition and pre-order thing that I know Angelo has very strong feelings about.
So, honestly,
Yeah.
early access is very different from pre-orders. I'll just say that. Early access is...
It's true.
You're not buying the game that's going to come out in 2 or 3 years. You're buying the janky mess that is available now, and you get to, like, explore along with the growth of the game. Pre-orders, on the other hand, is putting down full price money for something that you don't know if it even works. You don't know if it's going to be good. It could be complete trash.
Wait. Collector's editions and like pre-ordered
So
collector's
I'm just
edition
talking
games.
pre-orders right now.
Like you said,
Collector's editions are a little bit different.
yeah, like you said, very different. Collector's editions are almost always also pre-ordered as part of the
They
pre-ordering
are.
cycle.
And okay, so I don't typically buy collector's editions. I have bought very few. I could probably count on one hand how many I bought. That being said, do you think that, so knowing the things that you can get in collector's editions, and let's talk about good collector's editions. Let's leave bad collector's edition stuff behind. Bad collector's editions, meaning, for example, Diablo 4
Oof.
is coming out with a collector's edition that does not include the game.
I wanted to talk about that.
Wow, Jay just busting through
I
the
actually
gate,
wanted to
guns
talk about that.
ablazing on that one.
And you know what?
Okay, we'll talk about it, but I just want to point out something. When I'm talking about a good collector's edition, I think everyone sort of inherently knows what I mean. So we're talking about things that have cool art books,
Nice props.
soundtracks,
Tin
maybe some
box.
figurines, tin box,
Figurines, yeah.
that kind of like stuff that you actually want to put that
A
100 or
display
200
piece of
extra
some
dollars,
kind.
right?
Yeah.
So talking about those and then getting a bad game out of it, do you now
Yes.
devalue the entire collector's edition where you're like, the art, it was really cool, the music was still really good, but either the game ran like ass or just did not meet expectations in some other way, and you're like, now I have a collector's edition that I just don't care about?
If you walked into
Or
somebody's
is it
room,
still good on its own?
if you walked into somebody's house and they had a giant poster for Fallout 76 on the wall, would you judge them for it? I would.
I wouldn't, because I'm the kind of person where
I would be
it's
like,
your
of
money,
all
like,
the
I don't
games you
care.
could have gotten a giant poster for, that one? Really? I don't even know
Was
if
it
there's
a
posters
nice
that
looking
exist for it.
poster?
I remember Fallout 76
or-
was the
like
canvas
I don't
bag
know. There's so
debacle,
many
wasn't it?
things that I would have to take into consideration. What if? Actually, no. I'm gonna move this question. Like, I'm gonna move this over to a different perspective. If you had a game that came with a display piece, like a poster or like a big, figure or something, but you hated the game. It turns out you actually hated the game. Would you keep those items on display?
If it looked cool, I probably
For
would.
me, I probably wouldn't.
So, I actually have a few different things to say about this.
Oh, good. Let's go.
So when it comes to collector's editions that are just like a metal tin for the disc,
Uh-huh.
at least it looks cool, whatever.
Yeah.
When it comes to collector's editions that don't include the game, I used to
What?
think that was the dumbest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed my mind on it, and now I think it's great.
What?
So, you can pre-order the collector's edition that has all the cool stuff, right? And that way, because it's physical stuff, it's actually worth pre-ordering. And then, you can save your $80 and buy the game after you know it's good.
Oh, that ain't bad. I actually do like that.
Yes. So that framing completely changed my perspective on collector's editions that don't include the game.
Buy the game after you know it's good and it's gone on sale.
Like, let's say a new Doom game came out, and the last two Doom games have been very good. Let's say you love Doom, and they come out with a life-size Doom Guy collector's edition that you get the Doom Guy armor, and you can put that in your closet. I don't know. But it doesn't come with the game. And there's only going to be 5 of them, and you have money to burn. Whatever. You can pre-order the Doom Guy suit. You can be super happy about it. And let's say the game comes out, and it is worse than Duke Nukem Forever.
Then what do you do?
You still have the first 2 games that are great. You can still be a fan of the franchise and clown on the new game and have the awesome thing.
That's true. I like where
Yes.
that's going.
So part of the reason that I wanted to talk about this, one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because Tears of the Kingdom is coming out in May, which is the new Breath of
That
the
is
Wild.
the new Zelda?
Yes. And anyone who knows me knows I love Zelda games. I love Breath of the Wild.
What are they bribing
Zelda
you
is
with?
a franchise that has its hooks in you.
What are they
Oh,
bribing
absolutely.
you with? What are the collector's
So
editions?
it has a pretty decent collector's edition. Like it's nothing like that's, I wouldn't say it's like a mind-blowing one, but it is like a very standard good type of collector's edition.
Okay.
Okay, so
It's probably got like the metal case. Maybe it includes
yeah, it
like a
does.
nice map or something. Some nice artwork.
I don't recall if it has a map, but it definitely has the art book. I think it has a soundtrack. I'm gonna double check real quick.
So things like
here.
art books and soundtracks, I love those as like a collector's edition thing.
No, I really want to find it really quickly before I go on. But like I am slightly worried because I don't think they've showed too much gameplay I am worried because this game is coming out on the Switch. And the Breath of the Wild original
It was a launch
game
title, wasn't it?
looks pretty good and played, and yeah, it was launch title. It actually played decent. There were some moments where it slowed down, but like you could, you know, that's just the Switch's problem in general. Okay. But because this game is like the newer game, I'm like worried that if it's running on anything newer, engine wise, like if it's going to tax the game and just makes it a worse game overall. Now, that being said, I liked Pokemon Violet, and I had a lot of fun with it. Like a lot of fun with it. Was it kind of shitty at times graphically and, you know, processed poorly sometimes? Absolutely. But I still had fun. I'm just sort of like, I don't know. I'm timid about committing to this collector's edition. It looks fucking sick.
Have they announced the
the
release
game?
date for it yet?
Yeah.
Is it this year or is it next year?
No, it's this year. It's
Oh,
May.
okay.
But it's been
it's
in production
May.
since. Yeah, it's been in production. I presume pretty much, you know, probably the year after or the same year after they started finishing up DLC for Breath of the Wild. So it's been in production for actually a good amount of time. So it hasn't been as rushed as like the Pokemon projects. I don't know if I'm just copying, giving myself a huge dose of copium, but it looks fucking sick, guys.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you at all for it. Nintendo's that rare case, especially right now. The Switch has been around for like 5 years. If they were saying that it was going to come out near the end of the year or by next year, I'd be like, oh, is this going to be another Twilight Princess situation where they have the one version for the one console, but it's also a launch version for the new console? But I mean, if it's coming out in May, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, not a fan of games that do that.
If anything, they'll have a port for it for whatever comes after the Switch. Maybe. That is a huge stretch.
I don't even worry about that too much. I don't worry about that too much. I know I want to play the game already. I just don't know if I want to commit another $100, I think it is, for the collectors. It's not necessarily even the money. It's just like, I really don't want to commit the money and have it come out to be a not good product, because again, that will sort of sour my.
I mean, if you liked Pokemon Violet,
as the
according to
consumer.
the internet, you have horrible taste and you'll like anything anyway. So you're probably safe.
It's true. Absolutely. My brain smooth enough.
You'll just want to be green cookie boy.
Going going back to the first question though, what is the oldest console that you'd ever want to go back to?
Whoa, damn. NES.
Oh, easy. Super Nintendo.
I'm not even
okay.
joking. Duck
That was
Hunt
fast.
on the NES lives rent-free in my... I loved those. Any of the light gun games on the NES were so fun.
Yeah.
I've never played a light gun game, but Super Mario
Duck Hunt
World
was great.
is literally a core memory for me.
It's burnt into my memory.
It may be the first game I've ever beaten, or at least the most a game that I have spent the most time on as a child before Pokemon, because Pokemon was a whole other dopamine engine.
What about handheld then?
Game Boy Advance SP.
Wow.
Not even a second
SP
question.
or Advance. As Advance probably more because Advance probably more because if you get the custom, then you can get the backlight on it, and it's better to hold in my man hands. An SP is quite
So
small.
the holding the Game Boy Advance was way better, infinitely better than the Game Boy Advance SP. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Didn't the SP have the feature where if you flip down the screen, didn't it effectively have the save state? Didn't it basically pause the game? Am I
No.
misremembering?
I do not know this.
I don't think so.
My childhood memories are very, very well encapsulated by the original spinach-colored screen Game Boy. The original Game Boy. And
I mean,
it jumps from that to
I
the
had one of
freaking
those.
DS Lite. Like, I'm missing a lot in the middle there.
the DS Lite is also an amazing console because
liked it a
while
lot.
it could not play Game Boy Color games and older, it could play Game Boy Advance games and DS games. And that was amazing.
My biggest beef with the 3DS was probably the fact that I had one with a wobbly hinge. And I think most of that first generation had a wobbly hinge, which was...
So
I actually didn't like the DS generation at all.
oh, you missed
liked
out.
the DS
It
Lite. I really
It was
did.
one of the strongest handheld console generations, if not
So
the
I had-
absolute strongest.
I had the original freaking Donkey Choker gigantic DS. It was heavy as hell. The screen was back heavy, so it felt like it hurt your wrists almost to hold it for extended periods of time.
Makes sense.
And when the DS launched, there were no good games. Legitimately none. It took like a year and a half for there to be anything worth playing on the DS at all. And by that point in time, I'd completely fallen in hate with that console. I'd left it on my desk at home. I started using my Game Boy Advance SP again instead of it. And I eventually sold that and the few games I had in college for like $100.
Yeah, I think I'm really glad I skipped out on the original generation of the DS. The DS Lite was great. I hated the first generation of the 3DS. I think all the ones that came after it were much better. But I think if I had to go back to like the oldest I could, I think I could go back to the original Game Boy.
I would go with the Game Boy
It had the
Pocket
Little
first.
Mermaid game on it.
Game Boy Pocket was everything that was good about the original Game Boy, but in half the thickness. Unfortunately, a gray
In that
screen
case,
instead of a green
I
screen.
would go to the color. I would go
Oh.
for the color in that case.
For me, SP all the way, because the clamshell flipping protects your screen. It had the rechargeable battery.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Did you guys have a drawer full of AA's or AAA's
True.
for your Game Boys that you had
Yeah.
to constantly restock
Yeah.
every month?
because my parents were like, this kid just keeps on eating batteries. We're buying the fucking rechargeables.
Yeah, we
even
had
though
rechargeables,
the
but I had
alkaline
like a
The
set
rechargeables
of...
rechargeables
sucked.
only last like 2 hours. They were garbage.
But they were still cheaper than having to buy new batteries.
My dad had access to the really good stuff because he worked in a tech shop, so I usually had the really good lithium-ion ones.
Like, I loved my Game Boy Pocket, my Game Boy Color, my Game Boy Advance, but the Game Boy SP, for me, was the absolute pinnacle of handheld gaming ever.
Nah, it's the DS Lite.
DS Lite for
the
me
DS
because I
Lite.
had an R4 in that thing. It was
Oh,
amazing.
damn, okay.
Also R4.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do remember
I
the
had
R4
That's
now.
like
fair.
25 games with me at any given time. We could Tetris battle if we got, if we had multiple people playing. It was so good. I loved it.
I think the DS is the best-selling handheld of all time as well.
Of all time.
I need to correct myself. I had Mario Kart on the DS. That was the one good game.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were multiple.
I'm
good
still
games,
a
but
bad
yeah.
Mario Karter, but it was still good.
That was the one good game in the launch year. And we'll launch a new episode next week.
See you next
Time
time.
to stop being old.